Hey, Nancy. Hey, Bellamy.
Good evening.
Good evening, James.
Hi, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I was muted before.
That's all right. No problem.
Good evening, Bill. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Cynthia, James, Aguilar, Nancy.
Wait a minute or two for our other two members here.
6:30 gets here fast. Man.
I literally just walked in the door.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Well, next week will still daylight, right?
Yeah.
Time changes.
Yep.
Hour of sleep, apparently.
Check. I'm going to check with Jeff if anybody wants to message Deidre and see if she's. There's Jeff. Okay.
Everyone, so I'm a
Hey,
few
Jeff.
minutes late. Good to see you.
Missed the meeting.
I
Yeah, we're
missed the
done.
That was a
meeting.
good one, though.
Shoot. Okay, see ya. Oh, I want to get up Bill's document. Let's see.
Hansel, do you have Deidre's number, right? I don't offhand.
I've already messaged her. I'm just waiting for a reply back.
Okay. Another minute.
James, any news on the college front?
Yeah, for my daughter, she heard back. She applied to 9 schools. So so far she's heard back from 2. And she got into the 2 that she applied to so far, or 2 out of the 9. But waiting for 7 and praying for scholarships and grants.
But it's still early. Is it still early to hear?
If you didn't apply early decision in that October, November timeframe, and you didn't want to commit, then you don't really find out these days until I want to say late March, early April. Then you got 30 days to make a decision from there. So,
well, good luck.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
fingers
wish you the
crossed.
best.
yep.
You started that second job yet?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, man. I'm hoping she'll go down to Piedmont, which is about the only one we can afford. So
That's right. No, I expect to see it, greeting me at Walmart one day.
Oh.
What is it? Remy Trail?
Yes.
Is that a miss? I don't
That's
know.
Mr.
Mr.
Yes.
Trail?
Yes.
Could you promote Ms. Gilmore from the attendee?
Excellent.
Great.
All right. Okay. Well, I am happy to call to order the first meeting of the Charlottesville Police Civilian Oversight Board, because that's now what our name officially is. Hansel has assured me that it's a name only thing until we get these operating procedures done, but nonetheless, I think it's a good thing to celebrate. Does anyone have any announcements for the good of the board?
Sir, I have some announcements. Sorry,
Yes.
I couldn't find my raised hand. Just some announcement for the board members of upcoming opportunities. And this one might be special interest. Let me just get the date. I'll do that one last. But the first one is NACO. I sent an email regarding that. They opened up their proposals. They're receiving proposals. They're open for receive proposals for the annual conference. And if anybody's interested in that, it's a really great experience. You all have some really unique knowledge and can contribute to the discussion. So if you have any good ideas about any topics, feel free to submit a proposal. I can provide administrative support to you if you need and do some research and help you put something together. I've presented before and I've attended a few years, so it's always a good experience. The other opportunity I want to bring to your attention is we are a few months out, but every year the Center for Evidence-Based Crime Policy at George Mason University, they have an annual symposium. And they announced for the date for this coming one is on Monday, June 27th, which is it'll be in Arlington. It's a one-day thing, and it's usually free, or it is free. And some of the topics that may be of interest to the board include what is the most cutting-edge research say about hotspots policing today? Another question is, can we integrate mental health and law enforcement interventions to improve society's response to those in mental distress? How can science play a role in police reforms? Are there ways to reform the criminal justice system to reduce errors? And how do we mitigate racial and ethnic disparities in criminal justice? And again, that is a free symposium, so we can definitely make sure that we provide transportation for board members. I'll send the link to apply to that. And the other event, and I'm trying to find the date for you, is the Office of Human Rights. They are having a town hall. Oh, the Human Rights Commission is it's scheduled to have a town hall on March 24th. And I know the ordinance talks about having town halls or public forums for the board. So this may be a good opportunity to see how other boards and commissions are doing it. And that's on March 24th at 6:30 p.m.
Is that online? Do you know, Mr. Aguilera?
Let's see real quick. I can look at it. I believe it will be, because I think at the last city council meeting, they're still trying to work out the logistics of in-person events. But if I don't want to speak out of turn, but I can get you the information and follow up via email.
Yeah, if you would, please. Yes, thank you.
Well, thank you, Hansel. Yeah, I think we are still under COVID protocols for a while, but yeah, those sound interesting, and if you'd send the links, I would appreciate it. Any other announcements? Okay, would anyone like to move to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Trail, could you poll the board, please?
Mr. Chair, I'm.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot you do that. Sorry.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
And again, the motion is to approve the minutes. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Dr. Frazier?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmore?
Yes.
Chair Mendes?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Watson?
Couldn't quite hear you.
Yeah. Yes, can you hear me? Yeah, okay.
You're good. Got it.
Sorry about that.
All right. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda, the proposed agenda. Yes, was there a hand raised? No. I should point out that under item 7, the discussion of operating procedures, there are 3 topics listed there. Those are just 3 of many topics that we may want to discuss. And so, when we get to that item, I'll certainly open up the floor for any questions or comments on any section of this big document. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Mr. Aguilar?
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter,
Aye.
I'm sorry, I couldn't register to vote.
That is another way of saying yes.
Oh, okay, sorry. Thank you. Dr. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Gilmore,
Yes.
Chair Mendes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Watson.
Yes. Hopefully you guys heard me.
Yeah.
I need a new microphone.
Okay, so the agenda is approved. With that, we can move on to the next item, which is the first public comment section. So we didn't get a lot out for review in as timely a fashion as we wanted. So this public comment section is truly open to whatever topic anyone wishes to raise at this point. Mr. Trail, is there anyone who wants to speak to the board?
If you'd like to speak to the board at this time, please click the raise hand icon in your Zoom webinar, or if you're joining us via telephone, you can press *9. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes. And Mr. Chair, I see no hands raised at this time.
All right, thank you. So in that case, and there will be a second public comments period toward the end of the meeting. So people will be allowed to speak then as well. So we move on to item 6, which is the Executive Director's report. Mr. Executive Director.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. And if you didn't see it in the packet, I apologize, but I had posted it on the website, the report format that I showed you last week. To be honest, the bulk of my activities surrounded assisting with the operating procedures. So you're going to see some light outreach and some light administrative activities. But one outreach opportunity, a young man from the UVA's Police Review Board reached out to us, and they connected to us and wanted to learn more about how we're doing our procedures here. And it also developed into a bigger conversation, and they invited the chair and the vice chair to participate in their Know Your Rights. It's a 3-day event that they're going to have for their students, and they're going to give the board the opportunity to talk about what avenues or what venue for police accountability they have in the city once they step out of the campus. So we're getting the logistics of that, but that's going to be an event coming up in mid-March. We've been finalizing the discussions with the potential retreat facilitator. So we're just going to be making announcements about that and how the logistics of that, making sure we abide by all the FOIA requirements and able to have a productive discussion about that. The next step would be, after we work out the logistics, is the facilitators will be contacting the board members and trying to get one-on-one from each of them what their vision is for this retreat and what their goals are, so they can put together a strong proposal or agenda for the actual retreat. It'll be a 1-day retreat, and we'll do it somewhere in the vicinity. So the next thing I wanted to highlight, I just received a notice today. We won't have any the KUP interns for the spring. They didn't appear to get a lot of applications, but we're still on their on the radar for summer interns. So we're waiting on that if there's any placements for the summer, and hopefully we'll get some. We're still waiting on UVA students to apply for our work study program. We did have one student who was very qualified. Other than that, he didn't have work study. So everything else checked out, but he had not received the work study award. So that's something that we weren't able to work out at this time. Here's the budget to actuals, just an update. Just a slight change from last month's. Not too much spending, but we are also in the process of securing the laptops for the group, and that's going to be able to give you more access and more security for the confidential files you're receiving. So I do have some devices that the IT team has selected for us that are a good fit. They're Microsoft. They have provided me the opportunity to play around with them a little bit. So I have in my possession, but we should be getting that to you within the next few weeks. Then we'll have a discussion or training rather with IT, so they can roll out they can walk you through how to use the devices and how to access the SharePoint and all the files that we'll be uploading there. As you may have seen it in my email earlier this week, the budget, the proposed budget came out. It is available online for review. I just got out of a work group budget meeting right now, and still going on. There was a lot of activity going on today in the city. But one of the things that is of interest to you, the board's budget was not increased or decreased, but because they're still considering city council, they're formally considering it now that they have received it from the city manager. You have an opportunity to weigh in on that process. You can review it. You can make suggestions to the city council as a board as to if anything you see in the police budget and or your own budget. So this would be the time to start having those discussions. We may, again, I provided some projections about what kind of case scenarios we can see. And so that's something I would like for you to consider if the current allocation is going to be enough for the board with its new power. So if you don't believe it is, then this would be an opportunity to kind of get the ear of city council and say, hey, would you mind reconsidering the budget as it is?
Excuse me, Hansel. As I understand it, the next step is sort of the work sessions whereby the various departments go through their budget requests with the city council. Do we know when ours might be, or?
So to my understanding, there isn't like a specific date for a particular department. Like right now, they're having one of the first ones to work, and they have all the head departments, and they're just going over the document that was submitted to them. But because it's ongoing, there's still opportunities to have these discussions and weigh in. I can get a little bit more concrete answer, but to my knowledge, there isn't a particular date set aside for the PCOB. It's just that right now, during this open period, the different organizations can start providing input, but they do have them categorized in like the nonprofit and then the different divisions in that way, but not a particular one for the PCOB per se.
And I see Mr. Brown has got his hand up.
Yes, Mr. Aguilar, was there a reasoning provided as to why it remained the same?
Not to my knowledge. I think the overall message from the city manager is that it's a balanced budget. So they were trying to prioritize the city council's vision and mission and try to incorporate that into the budget. But I don't know that there's a specific answer for the PCOB not receiving an increase or decrease.
So that was 350,000. If I remember correctly, and that was a combination of 2 years.
That 350,000 is the annual allocation.
Okay, so what is this fiscal? What are we in?
This is going to be fiscal year 2023. We're in fiscal year 2022 right now.
Okay, so is my understanding that 350 was supposed to be for 21 and 22. So are you saying that 350 will be the standard allocation going forward?
Yes, as of right now, that is the standard allocation going forward for the board.
And does that does that encompass your salary as well?
That does encompass my salary.
Okay, so
So if you, and I'm just putting it up here for your review. So it goes from 350 to 362, but the reason why there's that slight change is because that takes into account the salary increase that they provided citywide, and the potential cost of living increase that's going to come in the summer. But it's really the same 350 that's rolling over.
so effectively it's roughly about 200 in operating capital. Is that correct?
About so, yes, sir.
And so what we're trying to do with these new powers, I don't know that necessarily 200,000 is going to be sufficient, to accomplish that. So, but never mind, we can, I guess, discuss that later. So.
If so, is moving on, but yes, those are great questions, and you may want to consider having, like you said, a committee or somebody, or even a special session to talk about the budget. But I can find out more information about how to input into this process right now. For oversight activities, we didn't receive any initial complaints, review requests, or closure letters. There were 2 inquiries that were made to the board and trying to find out more about the process and how to file a complaint. I am still trying to contact one complainant that contacted me a few weeks back. Excuse me, I have not heard back from that complainant yet. And Dr. Fraser?
Where do things stand on the pending case that we rolled over that we had authorization to bring to us in the prior year?
That case is still pending. It's on the docket, so to speak.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But no plans, no hearing, nothing. I mean, it's just status quo.
No, there's no scheduled hearings, but that after the mock hearing, we discussed about having more comprehensive training to
Right.
get the board to the place where they can be able to do that. The one case that is, from my understanding, will be your first live case. It's a use of force case. So it's really important that the board is able to obtain all the necessary training to have a really robust discussion and review of that case.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
And this just to hear an update of the steps, the next steps and future activities. But if you have any questions for me, I can answer any questions you may have regarding this report or anything else. One thing sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I guess, and I don't know if you have this readily available. In thinking about the 200,000, is there, I guess the bulk of that has gone to legal fees at this point. Do you know how much the legal fees, I guess, have been? I mean, I don't know, if we're doing, I guess, 50 or so, 50 to 100,000, then that would kind of leave 100,000 roughly left. Is that, I mean, do you know what the what the legal budget has been, or legal expenses have been?
Let me see if I can if I have the raw number so far.
I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm getting to the point that we should definitely ask for more capital, because it's, I mean, we won't, if we're trying to implement all these new powers, and I think that's one of the stipulations is that we had to have the capital to be able to implement these things. And if we don't have that money, then, the operating procedures can, we can write them up, but we can't necessarily move forward without the financial backing to do so.
Yeah, I think your point is extremely well taken. And as I know, as Hansel said, we've been, working very hard to get ourselves up to speed as an operating board by putting together our operating procedures. And as you can see, one of the topics that we're going to discuss, or we may want to discuss under the operating procedures, is the formation of committees. And certainly a budget or financial committee would be would be a great thing. Get it started as soon as we can and have detailed reports. I think that would be very useful.
I like the number 500,000 seems like a good push at this point.
And sir, I'm sorry, Ms. Carpenter.
Yeah, I don't know if we're all aware, but I think early April, board has to by law advertise for the tax rate, which they're talking about an increased real estate tax rate. So it may be a little bit to this fiscal year, but certainly, could start our discussions for the next, because they'll probably start next September here in a few months to look at the next fiscal year. So we may have to, I don't know how you tighten the budget, but.
Well, actually, this is almost a segue into Hansel's last topic, D there, which is funding for recommended auditing. Do you want to talk about that, Hansel?
Yes, one second. Sorry, I was trying to address one of the concerns Mr. Brown brought up, but I did provide the budget office some projections of what some expenses may look like under the new powers. So I can provide that to the board. And again, it's really, I did it based on the little data that we had, and I averaged it on 30 cases a year, what they may look like if we send, let's say 75% cases to mediation and we investigate 25%. So I did a breakdown to as best as I could on the particular fees and expenses we might have for that. So I can provide that to you if you want to pursue more advocacy for a bigger budget.
Yeah, I would definitely appreciate that, because we're not going to get anywhere without the money. That has to go with the operating procedures, and with the expenses that we've already had that are already kind of static, that leaves very little to move ball down the road.
Mr. Watson?
Add on to what, Bellamy's saying, because we do have to keep in mind that down the road, we may end up either paying for a consultant to do auditing, or we might have said this in the last few minutes, but pay for a consultant auditor, or actually have a full-time city employee after maybe 6 months or a year of working with having a consultant support us. So, that's another probably $100,000, $120,000 or something like that we'll have to keep in mind for the future. Over. Thanks.
So Hansel, you're pulling up something good. Okay, excellent.
Yeah. Well, this was just to give you, Mr. Brown, just the information I was going to share with the board. 1 second. Trying to make it big, but it keeps. There we go. Okay. That's not it. Yeah, where'd it go? Sorry. Let me just brought it up. Okay, Can you see that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and again, I'll share this with you, but in one scenario where we investigate all the cases, there'll be no mediation. This is the projected legal fees, hearing examiners. And again, this is not an exact science, so this is projection. So what the investigation range could look like, and then what the total annual could potentially look like. In another scenario where we mediate all the cases, the mediation fees, legal fees will go down because we're just focused on mediation. There'll be no hearing examiner, no investigations, potential staff salaries. And that staff salaries also includes the benefits too. And that also accounts for an admin assistant, some public outreach, equipment, professional development. So we could look at that potential range. So at the low end, I was looking at something like this, 364, and at the high end, somewhere around 586. And this is based on about 30 cases per year. But again, it's not an exact science. I try to utilize different methodologies to get at these numbers. So
I think it's, I mean, I think number one should be what we hold fast to, because that has the highest amount for the ability to investigate, which is obviously what a bulk of the powers that we just obtained, came into. But I guess, I mean, we can have that discussion, but anything, I mean, the rest of that, when you start taking away the investigatory money, I think it weakens, what we're trying to do here.
So in the breakdowns that you just gave, were you through, Bellamy? I'm sorry, I don't want to.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. In the breakdowns that you just gave, Hansel, the choices were PCOB investigates or mediated. There's also a third, which is IA investigates. And are we assuming that there would be no cost to us if the IA, if people opt to have internal affairs investigate, for example?
right. So the way I did it was assuming we get 30 cases, the office gets 30 cases. That's not considering any, right. There'll be no cost to us when cases that are sent to IA, but I didn't consider those for that analysis. That was just considering 30 cases that the board either mediates or investigates.
And I should just say, as you'll see, there is in the proposed operating procedures, Hansel has given us, drafted a set of mediation procedures, which I think is a very important contribution. And we can be discussing that in a little while. Now, Hansel, again, you're wanting to talk about this auditing process.
Yes. So pursuant to my report, I made recommendations. I don't think, and to the comment that Vice Chair Watson made about an auditor, my recommendation in the report was that we hold off on a full-time employee that's going to do auditing for until not this year, the next fiscal year, where we retake that question. But for now, I do think we should be doing some auditing. We do some in-house, and then we set aside at least 80,000 to contract a firm to do some auditing. Since our last meeting, I was able to speak with Ms. Chrissy Hamill from the budget office, and I found out that we have some money that we don't have to request new money for. Outside of your operating budget, we have some money that we could tap into. So it's just really a matter at this point of getting, of getting city council to formally approve your auditing powers. And then once you have those powers, you can authorize me to start the audit, either the internal ones and or to start the RFP process so we could contract that firm. But once we have that power granted to you by city council through the operating procedures, we have the money set aside to do that audit that I recommended.
Yeah, Bella, let's see, I think, James, I think you were first.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're saying that there is a pot of money out there that could reasonably support hiring a contractor once we kind of get our ducks in a row, such that we're ready to do that. And then after that phase, once, you know, I guess we vote on it or discuss the experience that we had out of it and what bang we got for our buck, then it sounds like then we would want to be trying to make sure there's money set aside for an official government position. Is that more or less the process you were thinking?
That
describing?
is right. I just felt like at this point when I put the report out, I did it based on the information we had. I don't know that we had enough information that suggested we needed a full-time auditor at that point. I wasn't saying we won't ever need one. I was just saying
Right.
with the information, we should just at least do one initial audit, see where we are, and see if it yields for more full-time auditor to be on the team.
And as I understand it, the funds that are freed up are from our current existing budget for fiscal 22.
And is that,
Yeah, go ahead, Bellamy.
did Ms. Hamill give you, I guess, an amount that's set aside outside of the operating budget?
I don't remember the exact figure, but it was at least 100,000 that we were able to utilize.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was a one-time funding that city council set aside because they didn't know what the situation may look like for the board. So that was outside of your operating budget.
Okay. Was this prior council or this current council?
I believe it was the council that authorized the board to exist. They established the board. So
Okay.
it would have been the prior.
Yeah, James?
I'm just thinking we could be operating at a little bit of risk if there's money sitting there right now, but FY23, I don't know, July 1, I don't know the exact when the fiscal year actually changes, but you know, that may or may not, even though we don't necessarily need that person today, I guess when we hit 23, we don't know if that little extra piece of money is going to be sitting out there. So that's maybe something to think about. I mean, I can't say I've sat down and looked through the whole, you know, budget and that I'm a budget expert by any stretch of the imagination, but definitely one of those things that we want to keep on our radar. Over.
Yeah, I asked council the same question about whether there was a hurry to spend the money. I believe his answer was that there wasn't. That this money was obligated to us. Is that overstating the case, Hansel?
That was my understanding as well, that money was earmarked for the city council, for the board, and it didn't have an expiration date. So that I can follow up on that, but that was my understanding of that money.
Yeah, so let's confirm.
That sounds good, because government money.
It's good news. You should always be suspicious.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Okay, so moving on with the other aspects of the executive report part, we talked about the proposed training curriculum. I submitted a curriculum to the various potential facilitators. We went over it with CPD. So right now it's really trying to get the best format to be able to do it. It is a rather comprehensive curriculum, so it's not going to be a one-day sit-in, but we could potentially do hybrid and we could do modules where they can do pre-recorded training on some of the topics. But I do believe we're going to have to set aside at least a day or two to be able to get everybody together. I wanted you to start thinking about your availability in the upcoming weeks and potentially starting as soon as April, so we can look at if you can. I'll send a follow-up email, but we can start pointing some dates, both during the week and during the weekends. I know a lot of you work, so but at least if you can designate a day, that'll be great. If we can't do it during the week, that's we'll have to see how we can coordinate with the other departments. Yes, Mr. Fraser, Dr. Fraser.
For that training, Hansel, are we under the still under the city policy as far as format for meeting? I mean, is there any possibility that we could use city space and spread out and do something live?
so we would hopefully have more guidance by then, but
Okay.
I know that at in the follow-up to the city council meeting, the protocol right now is that the city manager is gonna get with the mayor to put a safety plan and talk about which bodies can meet in person or hybrid. And there's also a priority list as well, because we have a lot of boards and commissions, and some of these boards and commissions have committees. So they're trying to put together a comprehensive plan. My understanding was 10 days from the meeting that they were going to have something together. So as soon as I get that information, I'll let you know
Great.
when we can meet and how we can meet.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, if we could do it in person, assuming everyone here would feel safe, I think it would just make for a better training. So thanks.
Okay. Another aspect of from last meeting, following up with Ms. Carpenter's request about information on stipends, I was able to talk to Deputy City Manager Marshall, and she's also talked to Mayor Snook. The process for that, because it's not specifically authorized in the ordinance right now, the board would have to put forth a recommendation to city council to see if that's something that they would be able to allow for. So right now, even within budget considerations, it's not something that I could unilaterally do. That's something that you have to get authority from city council. So my suggestions would be to start thinking about this very systematically and what you want. Do you want a year-long stipend, or do you want it more targeted where I see the board and there's a lot of parallels between the board and the jury. So do we want to do where a system where the board members get stipends based on their participation in review requests and also the preparation for review requests? So you can play around with the different ideas and proposals. I'm more than happy to provide any support and do any research you may need to put together a recommendation on that.
Thank you, Hansel. It helps to put some ideas in motion to think about for next meeting or whatever, whenever we have a committee or something about that. Thank you.
Okay, and that is all, I believe, all my sections that I have for the executive director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Executive Director. I can testify that he has been working his butt off recently on the operating procedures and other things, and it's greatly appreciated. And speaking of operating procedures, on Monday, we posted a first rough draft of the proposed operating procedures. Before I go any further, I want to say that this was a very rewarding team effort. I took the early sections, the easy ones, and related to board organization, memberships, meetings, and standing, so on. Hansel took the lead on the sections related to the executive director duties, complaint and investigation sections, subpoenas, mediation, peaceable assembly monitoring, and definitions. So he did a tremendous amount of work. Also, Teresa Hepler from the Legal Aid Justice Center volunteered and executed the hearing procedures, building on what we have from our interim procedures, the procedures for disciplinary recommendations as well. And these, I think, were some of the most difficult sections of the document, and most difficult in detail. In that, she was assisted by two volunteers from UVA Law School, Morgan Palmater and Sydney Stanley. I really want to acknowledge all of their involvement. So the document, as you can see, is very long, probably 1.5 times or twice as long as the ordinance itself, because it does have all the details about how we're going to implement certain implement the various powers that we've been given. My thought as to how we would go forward would be to, and maybe this is a little ambitious, but it would be to have a preliminary discussion tonight of issues that we thought were important at this point, and to receive comments and detailed comments and questions for the next week, and work with our team to resolve those comments so that we could generate a hopefully semifinal or final draft for discussion by the whole board sometime toward the end of this month. And the object here is to get the approved or the board recommendations on the city council agenda for their meeting on April 4th. And to do that, we need to have the document sent to them and posted by the 25th of March. So it would make sense, although I will accept any other suggestions for us to take the next 2 weeks to refine the document among ourselves, exchanging drafts, hearing inputs from stakeholders,
Okay.
and coming together with a next version of the document for the 24th, which is 2 weeks from today, and to have a special meeting at that point, perhaps at our usual time, to approve the document and send it on to the city council. So if there are people who have problems with making that schedule or think we ought to proceed in some other way, let me know. I see Dr. Fraser, you have a hand raised.
Yeah, just a quick question, Mr. Chair. You're talking about community input, stakeholder input, right? ASAP.
Yes.
I mean, we need to get the word out that we want to hear from folks promptly. Just want to clarify that's what you meant.
I think that's true. I don't think we've made the schedule clear, but working with Teresa Hepler, she's involved in the loop, and she's involved with the major stakeholder groups. So I'll make sure that she knows,
Okay.
What our schedule is, and that we need to get input fairly quickly.
Good.
Mr. Brown?
Going back to the budget for a little bit, I saw that the line item for outreach was at 5,000, and that seemed to go across the board. I think, I've 5,000 go pretty quickly. I'm not sure that that's sufficient to get that out. So we may want to look at raising that a bit so that we can actually, get more of the community input as well.
I think that's good. And again, this, like everything else, sort of segues into some of the next topics, in the sense of, a lot of what we're talking about is, I think, could be handled by a committee, by a finance committee. And so I'll just point out that one of the things that's in the document, in the proposed operating procedures, is under Article 4 specifies committee ways to form committees, which are much more formalized than when I cherry picked a couple of people, and that raised some hackles, and I think that's perfectly reasonable. And from now on, we will be much more systematic and representative about how we do it. Nancy?
Yeah, one thing about committees, it says that they can only be composed of board members. And right now we're down 2 board members, a non-voting member and a voting member. And, if we happen to continue on that, or, things happen throughout the year, that's going to put a lot of stress on, I don't know how many standing committees we might want to have, where you said, ad hoc, of course. But, do we have the capacity? Do we have a capacity to be able to do committees comprised of not advisory boards, but the committees comprised just of board members, or would it be better to open committees up to the community? Just, just because, all of us are coming out of 2 years of absolute hell in one way or another with this pandemic. And it's not over yet. Things are still, all over the place.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, our capacity to take care of ourselves when we do this hard work, because who knows what's going to come before us as a panel now or in the future. And that kind of traumatic information, and then, stretching ourselves thin when it comes to, active committees. I mean, we need them, and it's great that we're at this point of doing it, but, what is our capacity?
Yeah, Hansel?
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt with the flow, but I just wanted to, because we mentioned the 24th, and I know you didn't take a vote on it yet, but I just want to remind, and I probably threw out that date to you, but that is the date of the town hall for the human rights. So just putting that for you to consider if you wanted to compete with that or not, since you have the same public interest in your work. So.
Okay, and Nancy, your hand was up again and took it down. Yeah, okay. I will. My response, unfortunately, to that comment is that the powers that we have as a board are given to the board members. We're picked by the city council, and so it is not easy for us to delegate any of our responsibilities as board members to non-members. And that's why there's a specific provision for advisory panels, which can be a mixture of both. But yeah, I know it's going to be, if we're going to want somebody to take care of the budget, we're going to want somebody to do outreach. We're going to want somebody to oversee investigations. It's going to be work. That is correct.
But it's my understanding, and this was a side conversation, but I guess council has had a few folk apply that they, I guess, are considering. So that could potentially, be resolved relatively soon. I think if we put, or Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Executive Director, put pressure on the council members, we can probably get that taken care of.
And so we'll have one more member, and that will be very helpful. I mean, but still, as I say, I think having this division of labor will be helpful. I mean, we're talking here about early in this meeting, we're talking about this budget issue, which should be fundamental. And when we have a budget committee, it will be fundamental. It's things that we haven't done it yet. We have to be a real board and have real committees. And so I think we just got to shape up. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is.
I don't.
Sorry.
I mean, I don't want to. I mean, I can take the charge on the numbers aspect. I mean, that's what I do. That's what I get paid to do. That's what I've been doing for, forever. So I don't. We shouldn't, I guess, lose sleep over that. We can make that work from that aspect. So.
Well, thank you. Again, as I think a finance committee is in our future. I think that's pretty clear. And anyone who volunteers to lead the finance committee will be the major candidate to lead the finance committee. That's certainly the case. But as I said, one of the things that's in the operating procedures is, somebody has to formally volunteer and lay out a scope of the committee. And then we need to, the board needs to approve it. Now that's just the short and long of it, just so that everybody, all points of view are included. So, as I think that at our next regular meeting a month from now, I think it would be a very good thing if we had sort of a list of what we thought were sort of the bare minimum core of committees that we just have to have. And then we can proceed from there to organize ourselves. Now, I think we probably should decide whether we are available to meet on the 24th. Now, Hansel pointed out that that does interfere with this open house. So if perhaps the 23rd or the 25th in the evenings are these problematic for people?
Question,
Sure.
do we know that we'll have tech support? Hansel, do you know that Remy's here, but what's the capacity of having tech support? Because they're going to be doing, just curious for that week.
I don't want to speak for him directly, but so if he wants to speak and what the requirements are, then Remy?
Sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, so we're thinking about having a special meeting of the board, preferably at 6:30 on Thursday, the 24th, or one day before or after, and we're wondering if there will be technical support, for that.
Yeah, I believe that would be fine. There's one other meeting. There's the Human Rights Commission Town Hall that night as well, but I believe we have enough staff to cover both meetings.
Okay.
This should be fine. And yeah, each board right now is allowed to have one regular meeting and one additional meeting a month.
So
we're kind of balancing things. So I
Mr.
believe.
Chair, excuse me.
yes.
Mr.
Sure.
Chair, I could not do the 25th. I'll be away. I can do the Wednesday, the 23rd. Just that'd be my vote.
I'm in agreement with the 23rd.
How's the 23rd? I can do the 23rd. Bellamy, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with the 23rd.
Nancy? Nancy, are you?
I'm looking, 6:30, you say?
Yeah.
And you don't think it would go over maybe an hour, hour and a half at the most?
It depends, if we do our work, preparation work, it could be a short meeting, but I can't promise if you can come for half of it.
Yeah, I've got a commitment at 8, but from 6:30 to 8.
Okay, well, that does it.
Ask you a question about that, Bill.
Yes.
I may have some childcare, complications, but I do like the idea. Wednesday and Thursday are both kind of the same, but I wonder if, because I could probably get there more towards 7 right now is what I'm thinking, but I wonder if I could dial in over Teams and still be there virtually until I show up in person. I mean, I don't know what the policy is on that, but that's how we work nowadays, right?
No, I think you can call in at any time and we're fine. We know that. Yes, Cynthia, where you got your hand up.
If the rest of you are planning to meet in person, special FOIA rules apply to individual member participation by phone under those circumstances. And there is a personal reasons basis for allowance of one member or an individual member to participate remotely in a meeting that is taking place physically with a quorum of the rest of you. And you have the city has some electronic meeting procedures that cover this. Essentially, it involves making sure that the chair knows in advance that, for instance, that Mr. Watson needs to participate remotely, that he has personal reasons for doing so, as opposed to the other bases, which are medical disability of yourself or a family member. And a vote has to be taken in the meeting to approve that individual's participation remotely.
Does
This is doable. I'm just saying there's a process by which it's done.
Yeah, well, that's thank you. That's why we hired you. Does that apply if we're still meeting electronically?
If it's an all electronic meeting, no. This is a situation
fine. Yeah,
where
I'm not sure that we'll be meeting in public. It probably won't be meeting in person at that point.
oh, okay. I'm sorry. thought.
Was this a digital, was this a,
That he would call in.
I
or
thought it was an
participate
in-person
in.
meeting.
I did too.
Oh,
Never
okay. If
mind.
it's in person, I mean, if it's, not in person, then it just like every other meeting. I do
Exactly.
think though,
Yeah, so far, there's been
okay.
no plans to move back to in person.
I don't know why I thought it was in person. Okay.
Yes, Nancy?
Chairman, have you polled Ms. Gilmore as to, what her preference is? I haven't
That's a good question. Ms. Gilmore? You're muted. Can you?
Yes.
Can you make a meeting on Wednesday, the 23rd at 6:30? Electronic meeting?
Yes, that should be fine.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy, for reminding me. So I believe that, well, I don't think we need to actually vote on this, but I think, why don't we anyway? Hansel, you got your hand up again.
Yeah, I was gonna say you probably should vote on it because you have to provide the FOIA notice and everything. But so you have to motion and second it.
I would
Make a motion to have our meeting on what month are we in? Oh my
March.
gosh, March 23rd at 6:30 p.m. Special meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Aguilar?
Okay. Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter,
Yes.
Dr. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Gilmore,
Yes.
Chair Mendez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Watson.
James?
There must be a delay. Yes.
Probably.
I've always got a delay. I got the hard
Yeah,
wire. Too many
it's
people in
all
my
right.
house,
You got
I
it.
guess, on technology at once or something. I don't know.
Well, that's good. Well, thank you all very much. And so, again, what we need to, as quickly as possible, is to, do a deep dive into the operating procedures and see if there are any issues of concern or questions that you may have. And you can share them with the rest of the board by email. And you can be sure that the team that put together the original draft will respond to you and make edits as appropriate, and will refine something and hopefully post it in a few days before our actual meeting on Wednesday, the 23rd. Good. Now, what I thought we might want to do is entertain any questions that people have so far about the document. I can touch on the high points if people want. So, I mean, obviously the 34 articles, 35 articles are, pretty comprehensive and a lot to digest. So it deals with things like board membership and procedures for forming committees in Article 4. Something that we have discussed also in Article 8 is standing to file a complaint. And again, that remains very much open. If you're a victim, if you're a parent or guardian of a victim, or you're a witness, you have standing to file a complaint. There is new stuff in Articles 9 and 10 that I call to your attention, which allows Hansel and the board to decline to investigate complaints under certain special circumstances. And those are laid out in those articles. And so it is worthwhile taking a look there. Under Article 14, we are now specifically allowing the executive director to lead investigations himself, which wasn't something that was made clear in the ordinance. In Article 20, we are requiring or making it a procedure that when an investigation is complete, a copy of the report, after being certified by the executive director, goes to city manager, city attorney, chief of police, subject officer, and complainant. And the rationale for this is that it gives folks sort of warning as to what they're going to face when they eventually go into a hearing. The sections 21 through 26 deal with hearings. And again, I think Teresa's done an excellent job there. There's a lot of detail. The current idea of a disciplinary meeting is that it will be public, organized around a report generated by the executive director, who has consulted the parties, the supervisors, and been given access to the disciplinary record of the officer. As I said, there are two new sections. One is on mediation of complaints, which is, I think, going to be very important. It basically says that mediation cannot be applied in situations that involve the use of force. It has to be much less severe. That the participation must be voluntary by both parties, that both parties must participate in good faith, and that if the officer doesn't do so, the investigation is resumed. Now, here is an Article 29 that I think will be of special interest to Nancy, and it's called Peaceable Assemblies Monitoring. And what it does, it allows the board to monitor peaceable assemblies in Charlottesville, where the Charlottesville Police Department are going to be providing security. Requires the monitors to be trained, and that the monitors report to the board. I don't know, Nancy may want to speak more about this during this meeting or the next meeting. And
well, I don't know, let me delve into it a little bit, and see, what was this, was this kind of this whole procedure document, was this kind of vetted with you and Teresa and the other two people that you mentioned earlier as part of the committee when you went through putting some new things in, that might be good procedures to have?
This particular procedure came in very late, but I have some concerns related to it, but no objections. And Teresa, I'm not sure how closely she has read it, but she has seen it. I should point out that the whole, that Hansel has, forwarded these drafts to the city council, the mayor, and to the city attorney. And so the city attorney has provided, she's apparently is partway through and is doing a legal review, and we'll get responses to that soon. We've also asked Ms. Hudson to provide us with a legal review from her standpoint. So we will have the benefit of those reviews when we move on to the next draft.
Then, yeah, let me just kind of let all that kind of sink in and just kind of, stew around. And then when we have our next meeting.
Yeah, there's no hurry. Yeah, no, absolutely. You can read that. Oh, yes, Jeff?
Yes. Mr. Chair, where are we with the proposal on the ride-along policy?
It is not part of the
yeah, I noticed
training
that.
yet, and so you might want to ask The answer is that we have not moved forward at all. And I don't
Okay,
know whether
okay.
council, whether you have any thoughts about how we should move forward on ride-alongs or walk-alongs or whatever.
Just so folks know, Mr. Watson and I drafted a proposal and sent it on to the chair, and I didn't know, where it stood. So that's the background of my question.
I'm not sure that I've received, and I apologize if it was sent to me and I haven't reviewed it, but ride-alongs, they're not an issue per se. They're always available. They're available to any community member. So I'm not sure. And probably after I review whatever you submitted, I can provide more feedback. But I'm not necessarily concerned. I think the door's always open if board members want to do a ride-along with the police department. Yeah.
That wasn't the thrust of the proposal. The thrust of the proposal was to make it a requirement with alternatives made available, make it a requirement for board members with alternatives offered for those for whom that might be problematic. So maybe let's kick the can down the road and have you look at it. I can send it to you, or the chair can send it to you, and then we can maybe take 2 minutes on the 23rd or sometime, because just so we get some closure on it.
Yeah, James?
I think it might be a state requirement. I could be wrong about that. For boards to have that ride along. And then, as Jeff was saying, not everybody obviously feels comfortable with being in a police car. So we proposed some alternatives in that document that we sent. Alternatives to riding in a police car. So
so sorry, real quick to interrupt, but if I may, this was something that was brought up during the ordinance process, and there was a robust conversation about that. And at the board at the time didn't want that to be a requirement, so it was not put in the ordinance. But there isn't anything that there is no state requirement, and perhaps Ms. Hudson can correct me if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge there is. Okay, so
not that I'm aware of. I'm glad to check for you to confirm, but I don't believe there is either.
Right.
And the whole question of whether we should make it for our board mandatory is a question for the board. I mean, that was not, that was our proposal, but that needs to be acted on at some point, or tweaked or thrown out, or whatever we decide. But it's hanging out there. So just wanted to get everybody on up to speed on that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sure. So Ms. Hudson, do you have anything, any reactions at this point to, or status reports, or
in terms of
where you are on
in the review of the proposed operating procedures? I have some generalized comments right now about the level of consistency or possible lack thereof with the ordinance, and whether or not in places it goes maybe beyond what's authorized. I see these operating procedures as standing in the same relationship to the ordinance as, say, agency regulations are at the state level to a statute. And they must make sure that the regulations in that circumstance and the procedures in this circumstance don't extend authority and actions beyond what the ordinance authorizes. So I see a little bit of that there, but not much so far, nothing that can't be easily fixed and still accomplish what the purpose is of what I've seen. The other part of it is that there's a lot of restating in a different way and paraphrasing of the ordinance itself, which I think probably is something that you want to rethink. If the council has said it one way, then that's the way it is. But those are things that we can talk about on the other side, and certainly on the 23rd or before. I'll be glad to share my comments when I'm done. And I'm sure Lisa and I will confer and kind of marry our comments so that you just get a single legal review rather than have us both coming at you from different directions.
Okay, well, that's very good. Thank you. I should point out that one of the models, which perhaps not a great model for these operating procedures, was the old operating procedures, the 2019 operating procedures, and they were very repetitive and had,
Understood.
just
Understood.
quoted verbatim a lot from the ordinance. So that's where that habit came from. But yeah, thank you. Now we don't have to do that. That's good. So does anyone else have any more comments or issues related to the operating procedures or the review thereof? Just want to make sure, Ms. Gilmore, you have anything at this point?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I did, Mr. Chair.
Oh, sure. I didn't see it.
I did, I was on mute, sorry. I did looking at number 35, review of complaints subcommittee recruited by other city boards and panels. I think is this not in line with Ms. Carpenter's earlier, I guess, suggestion of having community members, I guess have a, I don't know what the word is, community members having a status that the board members, have, what am I trying to say? Is this not the same thing as people who are not on the board having the same status as members on the board itself and having that authority? That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I did not get to Article 35.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. And for the information of the audience, that is complaints against, it's called complaints against board members. And what it does is it provides a channel for residents of Charlottesville to file complaints against a board member. We'll specify, what we can be charged with, so it's not just anything. And the way it is currently structured, it has a complaint being sent to the executive director. The executive director recruits a subcommittee from other city boards and panels, which does not have individuals who do not have conflict of interest and who are free from bias. And they do the initial review of the complaint. And that's what Mr. Brown is referring to. And then they report to the full board as to what their findings are. So that is, that is Article 35. And again, I think that is an article that our legal team will probably comment on and may be subject to some changes.
Very well.
Okay. So I'll start looking to see those comments pouring in any day as soon as possible. I'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the second public comment period. Mr. Trail, does anyone want to speak to the board?
If you'd like to speak at this time, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're joining us on your telephone, click star or press *9. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to speak. And Mr. Chair, there are no hands raised at this time.
Thank you very much. One thing we did not put in our agenda, I hope you won't mind I inject. No, I won't inject. It's not on the agenda. I'm not going to inject anything. What I will do is entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second? Mr. Aguilar?
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter,
Yes.
Dr. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Gilmore,
Yes.
Chair Mendez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Watson.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, well, thank you all. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night.
See you on the
Bye-bye.
25th.
Okay.
Bye-bye.